I want to go. One of the fascinating things was how fast Lindsey Graham dropped Zelensky. Lindsey Graham, Lindsey Graham was the guy who was telling Trump, "There's so many rare earth minerals there, Trump. We can't leave it to the Russians." All right, Lindsey Graham went on Fox News, and I want to get your take on this. I love this. Lindsey Graham said this, and by the way, Lindsey Graham is a warmonger, just so everybody knows. In case you were unclear, he is a John McCain warmonger who was full-throatedly backing the Ukraine project. In fact, he was even one of those people who said, "Look, what's the issue? All these people are dying, yeah, but they're not Americans, and the money is coming back to us in weapons. So, the world is great." Listen how fast this has changed since that meeting with Zelensky, Vance, and Trump.
Met with Zelensky this morning. I urged him to stay on message, be grateful, be thankful. We'll talk about details of security guarantees later. Keep it upbeat, keep it positive. It was absolute, utter disaster. The question for me is he redeemable in the eyes of Americans? Most Americans witnessing what they saw today would not want Zelensky to be their business partner, including me. And I've been to Ukraine 9 times since the war started. I met with him this morning. President Trump I talked to last night, he was upbeat about the deal. I've never been more proud of President Trump for showing the American people in the world, you don't trifle with this man. He was very positive. He was very upbeat. He wanted to get a ceasefire. He wants to end the war. And Zelensky felt like he needed to debate Trump in the Oval Office. JD was awesome.
That is amazing. Like, Trump has bent these people into form. Like, if you listen to Rubio is like, "We got to end the war. We got to end the war. This is about peace." Yeah. And it's like, is that Rubio saying that?
Yeah. No, Rubio is, he has not acted like how I have expected him to act at all.
No, Trump has bent these people into form. I have a foreign policy. I am hiring you to explicitly push my foreign policy. And JD Vance has been fantastic. That is Trump's pit bull. He is a Trump whisperer, like, meaning he articulates stuff that Trump is saying more eloquent and far more concise than Trump does. And so it's like, if Trump is sitting there, he is a much better communicator. Lindsey Graham said, "I met with Zelensky 9 times. I've been to Ukraine 9 times. He said, "I met with Zelensky this morning. I would not hire him to be my business partner, let alone," like, he just, hot potato dropped.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, there is a lot of people who have tried to represent this as some kind of a disaster, but the fact is, this is how a president should react to somebody who is ultimately getting something out of us and is snapping back for no real reason other than, like, they want more. Like, well, I'm sorry.
No, there is a reason. I mean, from Zelensky's point of view, it's like, you led me into this war.
Yeah.
You told me you were going to back me for as long as it takes. Hell, you told me I was even going to win. And now you're turning around and saying, "I want half of everything that comes out of the ground," and you're not giving me anything for it. Like, I get it from his point of view.
Sure.
Yeah, right.
But it's also like literally us ensuring that things survive there. That's the other issue. It's like, we wanted a lot out of that deal, but they wanted a lot out of that deal, to be frank. The Biden administration, as far as I'm concerned, very much led them astray in terms of promises and in terms of, I mean, we did give them a lot of money for this war, and that was a big problem. And liberals, the supposed anti-war party, the Democrats,
there isn't one.
The people who were against Bush on the grounds of war, they decided that, war is great. Money comes from war. And so war is good. I mean, obviously it's more complicated than that. You have imperialism tied up into that interest very much. But at the same time, it's ultimately just, this party that claims to be one thing isn't that thing and proves that it's not that thing. And then somebody who, for whatever reason, and I'm not going to tell you, I think that all of Trump's reasoning here is correct. I think that there are miscalculations, because I think some of it has to do with diverting money to Israel, which I don't like.
Oh, really? You think it's that? See, I think. Oh, okay. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I think if we free up some resources in Ukraine, we end up with the ability to put some more resources in Israel, and I have a feeling that's part of where we're going with this. But there's also the fact that there are hundreds of thousands of people dying, and we okay, so even from a practical standpoint, let's say I agree with Empire. Let's say I think that all of that stuff is good and fine and we should be in control. From a practical standpoint, we shouldn't want hundreds of thousands of people dying purely from the perspective that it creates a situation in which there's instability, and also it makes us look bad because ultimately we're the ones funding it.
Right.
And I think that's not the reasons that I am personally opposed to war. I think that war is evil. I think that it's like the idea of hundreds of thousands of people dying for fighting over a thing where we're like, well, we just want to make sure that NATO is allowed to be up on Russia's border. So maybe one day we'll have the pressure to put them to crack up the nation and separate them a little bit more. It's like, I think that's terrible. I think that's just legitimately an awful reason to do anything that has dire consequences for anyone on any level. Like if 5 people died, that is not a good justification, you know?
Agreed.
So, but even from that utilitarian perspective, like I said, it makes us look bad. We're funding this. We're creating. It's like from a utilitarian perspective, an empire that wants to maintain its power partly has to do so on image. And it's very hard to maintain that element of it, the ideological justification for us being the big country in the world. If it makes people's lives worse or removes their ability to have lives, that it creates discontent. And ultimately, like just even from that perspective, it's not wise to just like randomly engage in wars as much as like, let's say we could win this. Let's say we could fund Ukraine into being able to beat a country that, you know, is oil rich and has all the money that it needs to, even despite sanctions and everything that we could say about Russia. Let's say that we could win, that they could win. It's still not wise because you're still using their lives to advance what is clearly your agenda. And eventually that causes discontent with people. It's just, we can't be that. Even if you think that what the world is now is good and it should stay that way, you can't just engage in these like regime change wars and trying to maintain power in bases. There's 800 some military bases around the world, the United States. You can't maintain that with this sort of cavalier, we're in control, we can just kill or have people get killed for whatever reason, and it's fine. It eventually isn't fine, you know?
And by the way, and lose. Yeah. And like, it's like you got all these people killed and didn't even win, right?
Yeah.
And
I was giving you a hypothetical scenario where that's not what's happening, but it is what's happening.
It's like, and you lose. And then to make it even worse, the boogeyman that you were terrified of is now not just a boogeyman, it is a superpowered boogeyman because it's been killing and dying for the last 3 years with a military that went from 150,000 to like 1 million men, battle hardened. And so it's like, not only did you lose, not only did you put all of this money out for that loss, not only did you get all these people killed, the thing that you were terrified of is monstrous at this moment.
It's much stronger now.
It's much stronger. And so it's like, what was it for? Like, I just, God, man, it kills me. Like, war is typically a bad thing. And I feel weird having to argue that this is a good thing that Trump is ending the war. And yet I find myself having to argue, hey, it's actually good that Trump is ending the war. Yeah, but he's an ogre. You say that to say what? You said to say what?
So what we have, what's good to have is a nice, well-spoken, soft-spoken man who causes more war. Like,
right.
That's right. What they want, obviously.
Right.
Like, to me, and I've said this many times, I just had a discussion with somebody who doesn't quite didn't really, has kind of been out of politics for a while and doesn't really understand where Trump is coming from, or why people like you or me would say Trump is doing something good at all, just because, they're not really thinking about politics. They're doing things elsewhere in their life. And I kind of had to explain, I don't agree with Donald Trump on a ton of stuff, but this is objectively the things that we want a president to do, as long as there's a president. We want less wars. We want more peace. And no, it's not ideal, the conditions that this reduction in fighting, it's not ideal how it's coming about. It's not ideal where it's going to go, but escalating tensions is not what we want on the worldwide stage. It's just something that can only lead to worse and worse conditions for everybody on the planet, and we don't want that.
And they need to acknowledge that the reason why the U.S. is taking this position is because we lost. Trump wouldn't be taking this position if we won or if we were winning. He's taking a position because the U.S. lost, and his thought is, all right, we need to put this to bed. And as he was telling Zelensky, dude, your bargaining hand is improved by being with us. Meaning,
absolutely.
I can let you drop and collapse on the battlefield, or you can negotiate with us where we have more things to negotiate than the war. If you're sticking your negotiations specifically to the war, well, you have nothing to negotiate. You have no chips, you have no cards. If you're with us, okay, well, we can negotiate sanctions, we can negotiate Middle East policy, we can negotiate stuff about Iran. Meaning, there are far more things that we can put on the table to help Ukraine in the end from a bargaining position, as opposed to you just dying on the battlefield. And Zelensky is, flipping out at the president. It's just amazing. I've never seen anything like that. I swear.
I mean, that whole event, they tried to act like Vance and Trump are bullying the guy, but if you watch the whole thing, it's very clear that he's just he's trying the whole time, and he's trying to do it in a manner where he doesn't look like he's escalated it. Which to me, the passive aggression is much worse than aggression. I hate passive aggression.
Yeah,
nothing makes me more mad than passive aggression.
Yeah, own it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of and I think that's the reason why liberals have been saying, "Oh, he didn't try to start anything." It's no. You all know what gaslighting is and how to do it.
And by the way, he flipped out. I mean, it was a question that went to one of them, or some Trump was last question, and when it came up with the deal, Zelensky said something. I mean, because he was annoyed, right? From his point of view.
Yeah, he was annoyed and he was getting snippy.
Yeah, exactly. He wanted security guarantees. Trump kept telling him no. They kept telling him no. And he flipped out and then gets into a back and forth where Trump is shouting him down because this is fascinating.
It was, I got to say, I haven't seen anything like that. My entire life at this point. You never see world leaders in the Oval Office having a peace meeting that ends in them yelling at each other.
Yeah, usually that stuff is behind the scenes. And Vance even pointed out, it's dude, this is not the place to have this conversation. Meaning having this conversation from the press like this, it's not the point. Vance, absolutely. He went after Keir Starmer. He went after Zelensky directly, where he is literally in the man's. I am fascinated by the dynamic. When Trump first picked Vance, I remember Malik was like, this pick sucks. It's this is not the guy. And over time, Malik was warming to him. And for me, look, I know in domestic, I'm not going to get anything I want in a domestic sense. Sure. I do like it a bit where his attack dog, who can coherently make a point, makes that point directly to Zelensky, almost like an intervention. You are losing. How are you talking to me right now about this, like this? Oh, it's fascinating.
SNL was doing this to make fun of him, but you just reminded me of the Willy Wonka thing. You lose. They had Vance literally do the Willy Wonka line to make fun of Vance, and it's no, that's kind of what happened here.
Yeah, it's literally what happened, right? You can't even make a parody of it. The event itself is